So we're going to do a haircut on Joey. As you can see, he's got a very distinct side parting that he's going to wear. So we're going to cut the hair to make it go into the direction that it's going to lay. If you are familiar with haircutting, short hair is stronger than longer hair. So if the hair needs to go to his left, the shorter hair actually should be closest to the part and therefore direct the hair away and then fall very effortlessly to the side. I'd never cut Joey's hair in the past, but you could tell there's a very lean side to it if you look from the frontal view, and then there's the heavier side. So if you really get technical, it's slightly asymmetrical. There's a lot more weight in here, so we have to, in a way, visually balance it out. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reduce the weight in here first. I'm going to try and lean out the parietal ridge area, and then I'm going to use whatever length that is visually. I'm going to make a visual balance on the other side to make it look somewhat symmetrical. But I'm not going to be worried about if it's going to be the exact same length. Okay? Normally, if I didn't have a lot of time, if I was in a hurry and I was very confident with Joey's hair, I'd probably just grab the clippers and start clipping away. But because I never cut his hair before, I'm not really sure how his hair is going to react. So I'm going to go over it. Since he's got enough length, I'm going to start to pick it up in my fingers and layer his hair to make a leaner, flatter silhouette and form a nice corner right at the parietal ridge.
So you're going to use scissors then?
I'm going to use scissors. I'm going to cut outside the fingers.
Right.
And the reason I'm going to cut outside the fingers is because when you cut outside the fingers, you have a tendency to lift the hair just a little bit. The elbow's going to drop and the hair's going to come up. A lot of times when we work inside the fingers or palm to palm, I'll do it this way.
Yeah.
All right. We position the corner where we think it's gonna lay perfectly, but as soon as we let go, that hair is going to actually fall. So if you're visualizing the corner like somewhere over here, it actually ends up a little lower. So that you end up with a very strong weight line. And
I often say that that's kind of, it makes you look either square or rectangular.
Right, and you start building way too much weight. So the goal is to, yes, create a corner, but working outside the fingers, your natural tendency is to lift the hair just a little bit. So even though you are layering it, as you release the hair, the corner seems to fall right in place, and it's a little bit softer, a little bit more discreet and subtle because of the fact that you elevated it. Working inside the fingers, your fingers are much flatter, and you tend to hold the hair and elevate it slightly low. So, all right, little things like that. Let's get started.
Okay, get on with it.
Sorry, I can't get that one worse, Coach.
Oh yeah, Joey's passing out.
Thick neck.
You're gonna get a little hair.
Hey, Wilder
It's
just
okay,
doing
I don't
Wilder's
care.
watching.
Oh, Wilder. Wilder fled. All right. So I'm going to start or begin right where the ear is, behind the ear, before the head begins to round off and become the back. So, and the reason why I'm going to do that is because I'm going to have a tendency to comb the hair towards me, over directing the hair back, and preserving length in here. As you can tell, there's no hair below the front hairline. So whatever this hairline is, or the last section, all this hair is going to be over directed back and maintain some length in the front.
Cool.
All right.
Steve Kim says, yo, Manny.
What's up, Steve?
Yo, Steve.
You
Kim.
just got a really nice tattoo. So as you can see, there's really not much there, but there's an old corner there, possibly from where the hair was cut in the past, and there was a little bit of a disconnection. So I'm just going to lift the hair, elevate it, fingers are in place, fingers are parallel to the section, right? And then that's just what I'm going to do. I'm not worried about this. I really can't grip onto that hair. I'm going to deal with it later. So I just removed weight. What?
Someone just said it's better than Netflix. It is
Yeah.
better than Netflix. Thank you, Jamie.
Let's binge. All right, so now I have a guideline, right? I'm doing the same thing. There's my guide right there. And I'm not using a ton of tension, but I do have a pretty strong, confident grip, I would say. And the thing is here, in order to make it consistent, you have to do whatever you did for the very first section. You have to repeat that for every single other section. So if I stood where I'm at for the first section, and then for the next one I'm like over here, I'm going to move the hair, whether I realize it or not, somewhere differently, and then when I go to cross-check, you're going to start to see that like inconsistency.
So basically you're going to stand in the same spot all the way through.
I'm going to try. Maybe
Yeah.
when I section the hair, I'll move.
Yeah, but
I'm
you'll
going to
come back to it. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a big thing. Obviously, with over direction, it's controlled by what your feet are doing. So it's very important that you maintain that consistency.
All right. I say this a lot when I do a class or I'm explaining something, is your very first section is your master copy, and you are going to make copies of it. Like you go to a Xerox machine or, you know, Konica, whatever you prefer, and then you spit out exact copies of it. So the very first section is what you're going to base the rest of it off of. So everything after that, those subsections are going to be just loose leaves of paper, pages, that are just going to mimic whatever you did the very first time.
Okay, so we got a question. What type of scissors do you use or prefer to use?
Right. Well, I'm left-handed, as you can probably already tell.
So you're kind of limited to
I'm
Hikari?
I'm very limited. There's only a couple in the market, and I feel like they're all pretty much very similar. I've used Hikari for the majority of my career because that's what I was just accustomed to. I also own a pair of Mitsutanis, which are very small 5-inch scissors that I use sometimes. But when I do men's hair, I feel like I cut a little bit less of a straight line. I don't do a lot of, you know, one lengths. So these scissors, because they're so old, they're a little bit on the duller side. So if I were to lightly nick myself, I'm not going to get cut, or I won't necessarily bleed. And then when I scissor over comb, as you can see here, now I'm over directing everything to here. So.
To where the hairline's the strongest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's really no point in taking a section right here. So I'm just going to bring everything to level to the sideburn.
We have another question. Do you
Okay.
use texture shears to blend? I don't think Manny does now.
No, I've never owned a pair of texturizing shears or thinning scissors, but you know, I'm also not anti. I think that they do a really good job if you know how to use them properly and don't rely on them all the time.
I think it's important to like let's tell people about your background, Manny. Where did you start? Where did you go to school?
I went to George Nikoloff Elementary School in San Isidro, California. Real quick, I don't know if you could already start to see that this hair is layered, but you don't see an actual corner, but you do see weight. And that weight is making his hair fall very, very lean, just in this area that I've actually focused on.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'll hear like a men's haircut is a graduated layer, and some people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. What is it, graduated or layered? Well, we layer it first to get that lean silhouette, and then you don't want to have this hair long or the same length as the hair in here. So then you either reduce it by scissor over comb, clipper over comb, or you know, graduation, and then that becomes to lightly tighten it up and meets up with whatever you already cut. Where sometimes people will go straight from the very bottom and start going at it, and you end up building weight, so it's just completely graduated, and you have a really bulky, heavy silhouette.
Right, so you layer it through that parietal area,
Exactly.
and then you taper the underneath in, right?
Exactly. So, anyways, I went to hair school. My intention was I wanted to be a barber. All I cared about was my hair, and I was actually talking to someone earlier about this. They asked me how I got into this. And I said, I loved getting my hair cut all the time. And I remember the feeling you got when you got a really good haircut, but the feeling you got when you got a really bad one was the one that I remember the most. And that really irritated me. And I felt that all the magazines, because I've always been very into fashion and you know, what's out there, what's trending. And when I would look at magazines, I'd see these models' hair. Obviously, I'd look nothing like them, but I thought I had good hair. Maybe my hair could at least look like that. I look like Mugatu right now. But nobody was able to achieve that, and I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll just do it myself. So instead of going into barbering school, which is probably would have been the easiest thing to do, my parents enrolled me at the Sassoon Academy in Santa Monica, and
Vidal Sassoon
Academy, when it was Vidal Sassoon Academy. And I got taught how to do, you know, all hair, not just women's hair, just cutting hair. And I realized, you know, early on that was cool, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the philosophy, and later on in life, you know, fast forward a few years, 16 years, I still enjoy cutting men's hair, but I do it in a very technical way. Maybe not so much traditional barber, but I do it more like where I can actually reproduce over and over again. I don't necessarily have to eyeball it or wing it every single time. I know what I'm doing and I can explain it because I've been an educator for most of my career as well.
So you went to school in 2001?
2001.
Yeah,
That's
so you've been doing
that's
this
how
a
I
while.
met you, DJ.
Yep. I was actually one of Manny's teachers back in the day when he was a cosmetology student. And then when you left Sassoon, you came down here to San Diego, didn't you?
I did. I'm originally from San Diego, like I mentioned. I came back. I didn't have a lot of money. Started working at a salon as an assistant or apprentice. And then, which was really cool because you got your education, but I didn't ever really even been inside a salon besides like a Fantastic Sam's or something when my mom got a perm.
Huh.
But I needed to know what it was like, you know, the pace, the way people operated, and just the environment. And I did that for about a year, and then I moved back to Los Angeles. I worked for Vidal Sassoon in Beverly Hills, which was brutal, but at the same time, I learned a ton. I saw some of the most amazing hair cutters. Somebody that I respect, you know, a great amount, Mr. Etienne Tanaka, who I try to emulate because he's just so elegant when he cuts hair and he picks it up. It makes it look like he's like a bullfighter or something. Just watching him blow dry, I learned so much from him. Let me just go over what I did.
Yeah.
If you saw me removing, it was very minimal amounts of hair. That's because his hair is very short here. A lot of people make the mistake of either with clippers, they go up really high to the point where they round the head off and makes the head at the crown or the profile look very flat. So there wasn't much to hold on to, but I maintained the fingers flat, and I want to make sure that there's a continuation of a flat silhouette or a flat dimension. Anything below this occipital bone area will then again get graduated. So it's layering it first, graduation after. And the graduation could happen either by a lot of cross-checking or a lot of scissor-over-comb or clipper-over-comb or just straight clippers with a guard. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to cross-check because I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to lift the hair horizontally, pick up wherever, you know, whatever work I've done, and then I'm just going to dust. And if you notice, I'm lifting the hair outside my fingers, which is really awkward to do for some people. But the reason I'm doing that is because I have a tendency to now lift the hair, oh dear, which is equivalent to what I was doing when I cut it originally. I cut it outside my fingers, so I'm going to cross-check it outside my fingers.
So if you come through on the inside of your fingers, what's the tendency to pull down, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
create lines.
Exactly. So cross-checking on the inside of the fingers may be more comfortable for you, but being comfortable isn't necessarily going to be, you know, the correct way. So
Yeah, I think it's
we say that a
important.
lot.
Yeah, well, the thing is you have to train yourself to be comfortable.
So I'm not going to do anything here because this is going to be very short already. And if I start to layer this, just from experience, I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to start to stick out, which is what I don't want.
Right.
It's actually laying very nicely currently. So if anything, I'm going to just start from the bottom here, and I'm going to work up to whatever the length is already there. So it's not so much the hair that you cut off, right? We've heard this a few times. It's the hair that you're leaving on. And in this scenario, like, he's not necessarily paying me to cut every single strand of hair. You're not paying me at all, actually. If he was, he's paying me for the end result, however way that, you know, that is or achieved. But I personally, just from experience, I think this is laying really well. Short hair becomes stronger and it becomes more resistant. It'll stick out, so I don't want that to happen.
Good choice.
Yes. All right. So
And this is the thing, it's knowing what to do
exactly.
and why these things happen. So Manny and I are both teaching classes at Long Beach, the ICE show, ISSE. And Manny's got a hands-on class on the Saturday, and then a look and learn class on the Sunday. Obviously the hands-on requires a fee, and you can get that by signing up at PBA. But what it is, it's basically like my Knowledge Destroys Fear class. It's just understanding the whats, the whys, the hows, the whens, and the what-ifs of cutting men's hair. It's not necessarily just barbering, it's just men's hair in general. As you can see, Manny's also a master of the scissors, not just the clippers.
All right. And I'm going to just go ahead and talk about what I'm
What are
doing.
you doing, dude?
So just like I did on the side, I'm going to start further back because this length is something that I'd like to preserve. If I were to start in the front, I'm going to have a tendency to comb to my guide, which means I'm going to comb forward.
And you round that through.
Exactly. And I'm gradually going to actually increase length towards the back. my goal is to actually make this slightly shorter and very gradually get a little bit longer towards the
So
front.
more of a triangular
Correct,
balance, what
yeah.
we would say if we're talking about shape.
Exactly, and it's extremely subtle. It's not like I'm going to over-direct everything all the way to the first section. It's as long as you're just combing it back to the section before, that little bit of combing is just enough over-direction to give you that increase in length towards the front. Horizontally, this way, my fingers are completely flat. And
PMTS Memphis said, "What's up?"
what's up,
What's
PMTS?
up? That's where Tommy Callahan.
Tommy, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Tommy in Las Vegas in, was it July?
Right.
Something that I've always been told as a student, I always, explain is corners. And corners, like I know what they mean, and I've always seen them when you go to cross-check, and it positions weight somewhere where it becomes suitable for the individual.
Right.
But the more I think about it, the more I teach, things come to me. And lately, I've been really into documentaries on fashion and fashion designers, and I see the human form as the silhouette, the shape. And on men's hair, there's really not much you're going to be able to do, especially when they don't have a lot of length to start off with. But what a corner does is think about a suit, right? Everyone's got their body, their shoulders, yet sometimes on an outfit, they'll actually insert shoulder pads. And a shoulder pad is just to give the illusion that it's a little bit stronger and a little bit fuller there. That's what we do with haircutting. If we don't respect that, or if we don't plan ahead, we may round this off and just rely on whatever his natural roundness of his head is, which isn't always ideal. So in a way, we're like tailors for hair.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because you're building the structure, you're building the house, basically.
You really are.
A lot of hairdressers tend to just sculpt hair. They rip it apart and then blow dry it to make it look what they want to do. So this is just a much more definite construction.
And you can see I'm getting towards the front. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to include all this front bit, and then there's not going to be much to cut, and that's exactly what I wanted. And I personally, I think that after 16 years of cutting hair, you shouldn't be anxious while you're cutting hair. You shouldn't be freaking out in the middle of your haircut, wondering what it's going to look like. You should know what it's going to look like, and the haircut should happen by planning and by design, not by accident. Everyone's capable of creating a really good haircut once, maybe twice, but it's when that person comes back and they request it again, it's to be able to reproduce that.
Yeah.
I talked to my friend Anthony over here, who's a barber as well.
What's up, Anthony?
What's up, guys?
Anthony's actually going to be cutting some hair at Long Beach, right?
Yes, I am.
Sweet.
Can't wait, my friend.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Anthony owns a barber shop here in San Diego. Classically trained barber, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So what are you doing now, Manny?
So just because we're going to work on, I could continue going with Scissor-over-comb, and let me just explain something real quick. The work I've done, right, if I was to go to cross-check, I'm going to use my fingers now to lift this hair and then refine that, which I should, which I'm going to. What happens is, as the hair becomes shorter and it becomes more difficult to grip, I'm not able to really give it a consistent refinement. So what happens is, instead of using my fingers to hold on to it, you basically can use your comb, and that's a method of cross-checking.
Yeah.
But when you're cutting, it's not necessarily, cross-checking, now it becomes scissor-over-comb. So scissor-over-comb technically is a way of cross-checking and refining your haircut when the hair is a little too short to actually grip onto. And certain hair textures, you'll notice if you even hold it horizontally, it'll leave lines or steps in the hair.
Exactly, you're putting way too much tension on the hair.
So,
Comb really eliminates any of that. That's why we use scissor over comb.
yeah. And a lot of times too, especially students who know what the haircut should look like at the end, they know it's going to go really, really short.
Okay, we're going to start. We're going to say hi, Frank.
Frank
Frank
Gambuza,
What's up, Frank?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of people say, well, why don't you just start going for it from the very beginning, scissor over comb? You know it's going to end up short. Well, what happens is, especially with students, if you start at the bottom and you haven't cut this already, you don't know where you're going to end up. You're basically trying to sculpt something on the fly. However, here, I know, because I've already cut it once, by the time I get to the parietal ridge, there should be very, very little hair coming off. So I've already set myself up to win in that sense. And yes, of course, I get away with doing it the other way, but I also have a lot of control because I've done this for a very long time. For a beginner, if you don't know, it could end up being where before you know it, you're like up here, there's no corner. Or you start creating a shelf, and then once you create that weight line, very difficult to get rid of. Moving on.
All right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cross-check with the comb. So I'm lifting the hair. Now, the hair that's being rested on the bed of the comb, that's the hair that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the hair that's like over here, because you got to remember, I layered it first. I lifted it about 90 degrees, maybe higher. This hair is being lifted about 90 degrees or higher. And that will prevent creating steps or lines in the haircut. So I'm just going to go over and I'm just going to go across and just adjust. And that little bit of cutting is a little bit of refinement. Same thing you would have done if you would have just cross-checked it in the fingers. Alright? So what I'm going to do now is as I move lower in the head, I'm going to press the comb a little bit closer, reducing the length slightly. You could almost go as short as you want to. You could even end up, do like a skin haircut without having to change the lengths in here.
So you're using the comb as a guard.
Exactly, and all a guard is, what a guard is, it's a comb that's designed to fit and secure itself in front of the blade. But if you are able to dictate, how much distance or how much space you want, it's basically just clipper over comb. The attachment guard is also known as attachment comb.
Yes.
Whatever you feel comfortable with. And if you notice, the comb is flat against the head. The base of the comb is actually pressing up against the bottom part, but this remains flat, which is equivalent to like, my fingers being flat.
Yeah.
But this hair is too short, I can't hold it. So your comb is, the teeth of the comb, substitute your fingers.
Yeah.
In a way. Obviously, if you would like to go shorter, you can use a comb that's even thinner and finer that would allow you to get even closer.
Yeah, and for those of you guys that use Scissor-over-comb, it's kind of, you could do the same thing. I remember, when I wanted to kind of leave a little bit more length in the Scissor-over-comb as a safety, I would use a larger comb, just like what Manny's using now, and then work my way down to what we know as a barbering comb. What comb are you using right now?
I believe this is a Hercules comb that I stole from the school I was working at, and the reason I say I stole is because students leave them around all the time, and I really like the thickness of the comb. It's a good comb to start off with.
So you're borrowing it?
No, I took it
Okay.
full on. And then this would be the next one down, which is a lot thinner. It allows me to get even closer. So if you see any dark spots, that's hair that's length, basically.
Yeah.
So this comb doesn't allow me because of the bones and how they interfere. So I could try to press, but if I do want to get even tighter, then I just switch to an even finer comb that gets me closer. All right, so
Cool.
major difference right
Difference in the
Yeah.
combs, yeah. Which one's this one?
there. I don't know, it's a German.
Made in Germany.
I think it's called, I don't know.
Z-comb.
Komischnight. I'm going to continue, but
Hi from Boston in 10 inches of snow. We're sorry. It's like 74 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so if you look, leaning
I'm
him out,
over here.
yeah,
That's
the
great.
lights. Leaning him out, this is going to get refined. I'm not too worried about it. My goal is to just continue with what I've layered in my fingers, reduce the lengths from the top down.
Cool.
Not that difficult. Yeah. Very simple haircut. We're not trying to, do a design, which is what a lot of barbers,
No, we're just doing
They do
real
it.
classic
Yeah.
men's haircutting. I think the thing here is this is your everyday men's haircutting. That's basically what we do at the factory. When I teach the Knowledge Destroys Fear, it's basically what you would do every day in the salon. So it's designed, for that everyday kind of just classic haircutting, whether it be with scissors or machines.
Yeah. So then, whatever.
Fabio, say hi to Fabio. What's up, Fabio?
Fabio, Big Daddy. So in the back, instead of rounding it off, I'm going to now start in the center here, and I'm going to actually respect the corners that we created earlier. So once again, I'm just going to pretend like I'm going to cross-check it. Now, you could actually see the distance in the comb and the head. There's a lot of space in here. That space equals length, and it's going to prevent it from looking really flat later.
Right.
A lot of times people will just press against the head and, you know,
Keep the comb.
exactly. We're trying to create dimension and, you know, position weight in certain areas where the head needs it the most to make it as complementary for the person as possible.
All right, Jamie says she loves you yellow.
Yeah.
Just digging it. I told you. He was going to take it off. I told him not to.
And give it to you. You'll notice towards the top of the head, less hair is going to come off. Remember, it's a layered, graduated haircut, so the layering happened already. The graduation is going to happen as I work down and hold the comb much closer to the head.
Mm-hmm. So really what you're doing is you're using the comb as to replace your fingers, the finger angle.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm working in the middle first, and I'll work out to the edges as well. So, another thing is if you do end up doing this, and for whatever reason you may see like a line or something, it's the same thing like you could cross-check. So if I went across horizontally, then I can refine with vertical strokes. So just reduce those steps, because they will happen. It happens to all of us. And then earlier I was saying how a comb is almost just an attachment comb, or a guard is a comb. I mean, if you just put the comb in front of it and follow it, I mean, it's pretty much the same exact thing.
It's like scissor-over-comb.
Exactly. Like, the comb will not change.
Just easier on your thumb.
Very much so, yeah. The comb will not change width all of a sudden on you, so as long as you're consistently on the head and then sculpting in certain areas, you're able to dictate where you want that weight to be, shortest or longer.
Cool, yes. Dina said that he's got great hair. It does help.
For sure.
Yeah, he's got great hair.
A lot of times when I do classes or events, I say, you know, like, the artist sets himself up to win by choosing a model that's going to make the haircut look good. So
You got to choose the right canvas.
exactly. The tough part is for the people that work every day in a salon. Here you could actually see the dark area.
Yeah,
That's the corner. So now I'm going to round it off. That's the true artistry, is when you have people with maybe not so much ideal head shapes or the worst hair texture you've ever seen in your life, and try and make that work. And not to mention,
Well, that's reality. Isn't
Yeah.
it? That's what we get when we're in the salon.
yeah. And then not to mention you have like 35 minutes to do it too. So like no pressure. Currently I'm having a nice adult beverage. I'm enjoying my day, my night. We're hanging out really. So I'm not in a major hurry. You have the luxury of time. You're able to like maybe, you know, think about things through, really plan things out. But when you're booked solid, you haven't had a bathroom break in a few hours. You're starving. You really want to check your phone. You know, that's the real hairdresser, you know, or barber.
Okay, I got a question. Sorry if this is repetitive, but what's your reasoning for starting at the top and working down? It's a good question, Joshua.
Very good question. Would you like to answer that, DJ, or would you
Well, my interpretation of it is you like the length through there, so you wanted to work down from there.
Correct. So, going over it one more time.
Yeah.
When we start from the bottom, a lot of times people will take it real short, and then to preserve length, they'll either work out and create a huge weight line, or a
Build
wider
up a
head
weight,
shape.
Yeah.
Or they'll continue and then maybe go up a little too high and then round it off too much. So by having it in the fingers first, I'm able to position weight in a way where I'm in a little bit more control, work that way, and then you can actually take the length down shorter as much as you'd like, even to the skin, without changing the proportion of what's going on up here.
I think that's a case of working smarter, not harder. And that's the whole point in this video, guys. It's just to let you know it's very important to know all the aspects of hair cutting so you set yourself up the right way. And that's it. Manny knows what, why, how, and when, and what if, and he knows how to change those things around.
All right, so refinement, that's going to happen in a little bit.
Okay, another question. Great
yeah.
questions from my friend Nikki Walker Kennedy in New Orleans.
Okay.
Does body position play a part when you are using clippers?
Yeah, absolutely. And me having been a demonstrator or an educator for quite some time, I'm conscious about me standing over here, but still being able to position myself to not block a viewer or an audience. However, it's the same thing, especially if you're working balance. Chances are, if you're out here, this side might be a little longer because you're further away, so you're going to tend to move your comb further towards you. This side might end up being a little rounder. So where you're standing has a huge effect.
Yeah, when you stood in front of it, you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
You can see it.
A lot of times too, like I don't even have to move. I could just spin the chair, and it's like I'm decorating a cake.
Well, that's what I noticed about barbers is the use of the chair more than let's say regular hair salon like the factory. I don't really see anyone moving the chair around other than Edna, and she's kind of comes out of it barberish.
Yeah. So that's another thing. I was standing over a little too far. I never actually got to see this. There's a little bit of weight right there.
Yeah.
So we'll now go
I
revisit.
saw that.
Yeah. And the reason I was over here because one of the worst things, like pet peeve of mine, is you go to see an educator, show you something, and they're completely blocking your view. So I'm very conscious about making sure that everyone, as many people, have a view as possible.
So, yeah, just a little bit more about Manny, because he doesn't really like to talk about himself much. But Manny's been a teacher basically most of his career. When he left Sassoon Academy, he came and worked with me at Paul Mitchell. He helped us open the Paul Mitchell School here in San Diego. And also used to travel everywhere with me and the team. So he's been an educator for a long time. And it's cool to do this.
Yeah, so I just switched combs, so now I'm going to get in there and get it even tighter. And the cool thing about this is you can even already start to see that even though I'm taking this pretty short, there's no hair in here. So that means that I'm not going to run the risk of taking this area any shorter as long as I maintain this comb very flat. And that is one of the advantages of starting from the top down, by the way. Going back to the question that was asked earlier. Another thing with combs is I see it as sandpaper. I start off with like a coarser grade sandpaper, knock off the bulk. And then as I start to refine and polish, I switch to a finer tooth comb and just, polish my work. Yeah, but definitely look around. I can see some weight in there. I'm going to go ahead and lift it a little bit higher than I normally would, because the higher you elevate the hair, and these are very minimal amounts of hair being cut off, and it's just reducing any weight. So as it falls a little bit lighter, a little bit softer, and less visible of a weight line.
So someone's asking you if you can explain that in Espanol.
Yeah, I can.
I think that's what she's saying. I can't quite read Spanish.
Yeah, sure. I think my clippers are about to die though.
Oh, Adam Threadgill says, solid cut. What are your tips for adjusting for different head shapes? Well, I'd say obviously first off you've got to figure out the terrain you're working on.
Yeah.
So that you can figure out where to place corners and stuff like that.
Give me 2 seconds.
DJ, I have a little input on that specific question while Manny's fixing his cords.
Yeah.
Even as a simple barber service, every single client that I sit down, especially the ones who I've never cut their hair before, I'm going to pretty much comb their hair and kind of maybe organize the part as well based off of the recession corner and their crown, and set up their part based on which way their hair goes, and use the comb as a tool to feel everything that's going on, particularly a mole, something that might cut or snag, and then most importantly the shape of their scalp, to know, like you said, know that
the bone structure and where it is,
very
right?
common. Barber basics. It's something that a lot of barbers overlook because as we know in the barbershop, people are kind of like just zipping out haircuts a lot and kind of quick.
Right.
But definitely, examine what the scalp and what the shape of the head presents before you start that vision, or like Man said, start your idea.
And I think that's pretty to me, that's a common sense thing, but not everyone's going to lean towards that. And we do that, you know, I would do that when I'm cutting a woman's hair as well. I'm going to look at the head shape and I'm going to section off based on where that comb hits and stuff. So yeah, definite. Cool point. I hope that answered your question.
That's also another advantage of starting on top and starting to get a feel for the head. Also, is how does the hair react? You know,
Because, you know, it rounds from here.
it does.
So it's good to set that in first and then work the underneath afterwards.
And if you look at the profile, I was actually observing it earlier in the mirror. I mean, a tapered haircut or a graduated haircut does amazing things for a head shape. The head naturally will graduate itself below the occipital bone, so there's an incline in here for sure. But can you imagine how much bigger or elongated the head shape would look if that graduation were to
Even
continue?
more, yeah.
So there has to be a little bit of light, flatness with a combination of graduation. So that layering, doing that first, and then the graduation gives you a stopping point. So by the time you get to that area, you run out of hair because you've already cut it once before.
Yeah, I think, you know, starting on the top, that's something I pretty much do too, and I think that just stems back to our Vidal Sassoon background. I think everything started with that façon shape, didn't it, where we started on top and then went down.
Right. So, as I said earlier, my plans are not to take a lot more length here because you could already start to see there's no product in the hair, it's very clean. I have a feeling it's going to jump out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the existing length that he has and just give myself a tiny little guideline, right, to work off of. So anything below there, the hair will come shorter, but it's not going to go shorter than that point. So that, in a way, if you look at it, it starts to give you something to work off of. You can almost see in the mirror that the hair below is almost like a little bit of a bump to it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go one section below, find that hair that I just cut, which is now my guide. I'm going to align my comb to match it, and then I'm just going to work down from there. And that's basically how I'm going to just reduce and reduce and reduce weight.
Cool. So again, just wanted to let you guys know that Manny's going to be teaching at Long Beach, the ISSU show. We're going to be doing Look and Learn, which is on the Sunday, but we also have hands-on. So we'll be doing a 3-hour hands-on class, taking you through about 3 different shapes, classic men's hair.
I'm very much looking forward to that. I know that the Long Beach Hair Show attracts a ton of artists, especially Southern California. It's the biggest trade show in our area, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people, especially the people on social media that we interact with on a daily basis. But to actually get to see people in the flesh is always nice. I feel like some of the people, even though I've never met, I love, and I'm looking forward to getting to know them personally, or just at least hanging out. I'm sure we'll have a drink or two.
Noriko asked when will the classes be. They're on Saturday and Sunday, Noriko. Saturday's hands-on, and then Sunday Look and Learn. And that's for Banny's class. For my class, Knowledge Destroys Fear, Saturday is the Look and Learn, which I'm going to do Knowledge Destroys Fear live. And then Sunday afternoon is the Look and Learn. Yeah, that's great.
All right, so
What's up, Dion? How you doing?
looking at it head on, earlier I said I would like to leave this length as is. I didn't want to change it, so I thought it would sit nicely and form a nice little head shape for him. And it is. It's very slimming to the face, slendering. It's a nice silhouette. So now I'm happy with my foundation. It's like my structural head shape. Everything I'm going to do now is just completely reducing, preserving all of this intact, basically. This is going to be like my...
Yeah, that's done.
That's my glue, yeah. That's going to hold everything together. So now that that's taken care of, I'm going to work from the bottom up. And as long as I make sure that my comb does not follow the head shape up here, but it just continues to extend, I won't cut any of this hair anymore because it just won't reach.
So your right hand right now is taking care of what your finger angle would do.
Right. And it's the same as with technical haircutting with scissors. you know, when you're cutting, you know, people really focus on the scissor hand, but this hand is actually what's doing all the creating. This is telling the scissor where to cut, and the scissor just mirrors it. So the comb, in this sense, is
whatever's holding the hair is the most
Exactly.
important thing. That's what's creating tension or no tension, and it's all about that consistency. So, and I think that's a really massive point. A lot of people tend to dwell on like, what scissors am I using? It's not really the scissors, it's actually the hands that hold the hair and the comb that holds the hair that does it for you. Are you guys coming to the Orlando show in June? We submitted, but I don't know if I've been accepted yet, but it would be our first time as independent. I don't think Manny and I have been to Orlando since Paul Mitchell times. Or did you go with Wella?
no.
No. So maybe, Christian. That's looking good, Manny. I can see that
Yeah.
little corner now you're going to take off.
Yeah. It's, in a way, weight is like a big slippery soap that you're just trying to like narrow it down to somewhere. You know, move it around, and like, I really would like it to just be here, so now I'm going to take it away. Like Pac-Man. You know?
Great.
My
The
clippers,
Langoliers.
yeah, my clippers are Pac-Man, and I'm just eating weight away, hurting it somewhere.
Hopefully everyone knows what Pac-Man is.
That's right.
John Hewick. Remember John? Any scoop on trends in men's hair for 2017? Will it stay super clean or trend longer? Who knows, John? I'm not really up to date on that stuff. What do you think, Manny?
You know,
I don't think
I
it's
think
going to
it-
disappear, the nice shorter work. I think that's kind of a staple now. I think the long hair is, it used to be, so we'll see. I think it depends on what you're watching. I think what we take our influences from is probably more bands and musicians. You know, I know Manny and I are always really into kind of like Depeche Mode hair and the Smiths hair and things like that. Not necessarily catwalk hair.
yeah.
CJ,
that's a
what's
difficult
up,
one.
brother? Hi Danielle, hi Jamie, both sisters are on here.
So, just looking at what the weight is doing, the shadows, making sure that there's no change, you know, all of a sudden. So I see a little bit of a corner, which is still there. So I'm just gonna go back, and a lot of it is just very minimal refining. And
Just kidding.
can you imagine? So my goal today for this was, besides giving awareness of, you know, the Long Beach Hair Show, the class that we're doing, is to just walk you through a men's haircut according to how I would do it ideally in a normal situation. A lot of people fear men's hair. They fear clippers because it is a tool that they're not familiar with. Well, you know, it's just a tool to remove length of hair. You're the one in control, and most importantly, don't forget that this hand, or your hand that's not your dominant hand, is doing the shaping. So really, you could be burning the hair off if you really wanted to. Hopefully not. But this is just another tool to remove length. How close you press will take it shorter. You know, distance equals length for sure. But it shouldn't be scary.
Pull away from what you want to keep.
Pull away. I've heard that once or twice
Maybe.
in the past.
I don't know where. So yeah, I'm enjoying this. I hope everybody else is, and I think we probably might do this a lot more often.
So I do see a little bit of a shadow in here as well, which I will go over. And when I was younger, earlier in my career, I would spend a lot of time, you know, picking away and like micromanaging the haircut. as I was cutting, but then I realized I was taking forever to finish a haircut.
Creating corners everywhere out there.
Well, yeah, and it was just never ending because I was always nitpicking. But then I realized that, you know, everything's got its moment. So let me establish this general shape, then I'll get to refinement. It's like, you know, you're not going to eat your dessert, hopefully, before your main entree.
Oh, I like that.
Ooh, yes.
Do you ever use a smaller comb?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. When he wants to take it even tighter, I think he's going to use a smaller comb. He's using these ones just like guards. So it's keeping, you know, a certain distance, a certain depth, length to the haircut.
I actually thought it would be a good idea to demonstrate how to create a tapered neckline, which looks really nice. It's a really nice way to finish a haircut. And I always use guards for that because it's just
cool.
A better, more efficient way to go about it. So if that's something that you guys are cool with, I would love to demonstrate it.
Yeah, Christian, we remember you, man. I remember. We'll try to come to Orlando for you guys. If not, you can come see us in Atlanta. I know I'm going to be doing some stuff in Atlanta this next year. So, yeah, man, go for it.
All right, so the beginning part of this, it's going to look like a complete accident and like, holy crap. Like.
So what's the brush for? I see this a lot in barber world.
Right, so the hair will lay a certain way, right? Sometimes the hair is too short for a comb to even pick up.
Right.
So the brush removes clippings that you've cut that might be sticking to the hair and still, you know, maybe creating shadows. So the brush is just to give you a nice little clean canvas to work on.
Gotcha.
And at the same time, brush the hair in the direction that it wants to grow.
Right.
Wow, I could really see some. I'll refine. All right, so you may want to get close to this. All right.
Okay.
Now, as you can see, most people's hairlines aren't naturally a straight line. There's, you know, some people's grow like ridiculously toward the middle. Like Stephen Moody, by the way, a crazy hairline.
That's true. I used to cut Stephen's hair.
So people, what they do is they try to create a nice straight line, but then what happens is you got all the stubble like a couple days later.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
fine.
the easy option out, but it doesn't grow out really well, does it? You know what I mean?
No. Let me see what it looks like.
It looks good.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring the hairline, the entire hairline, to where it's a pretty consistent, solid. There's no space in between, with the trimmers, which is going to cut the absolute shortest. So, and I'm just going to create a really stupid-looking, like abrupt, strong straight line, which was something that I was trained not to do ever, unless
I would have slapped your hands if you.
And like
this was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm just going at it. Like, it doesn't have to be laser sharp, because at the end of this, you don't want to see any lines, right? But that's actually, I've seen people walk out of a hair salon or a barber shop. Is that even straight?
No.
Right, looking like this.
Get in the middle.
And it looks good for a day or two, especially if they have like a nice tan line. But then a couple days later, it's going to grow out. You can't stop the hair from growing out.
And that's, you know, I've seen a lot of salons, you see guys walking in for a neck trim, like halfway through, you know what I mean? So I've always been a fan of it being blended from skin into hair.
Yeah.
That's how we were taught, which is not the easiest thing to do. So
That's
you can tell why people put the hard lines in. It's an easy option.
Right. So the trimmers have a very fine tooth blade, very thin. It cuts really close.
So you're using the wall right now.
Right, wall cordless. Very good for presentations, so you don't have to deal with the cord.
Cool.
The next thing up, so you could try freehanding it, Scissor-over-comb, but it might still leave a pretty strong line. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the clippers without a guard in it, and the blades move up and down, so that's going to give it a little bit of distance. Now I'm going to actually close it. So because this blade is a little bit thicker than that one, it's going to give you a little bit more length.
Right.
So I'm just going to go up.
From that.
Right, just a tiny bit. And you may not notice it, but that little bit of hair is going to start to appear gray, meaning it's getting a little bit of length.
Longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just
doing the shading now.
So now we're just pushing this line. We're going to push it up higher, but every time we're going to extend the length.
Get longer.
So now I'm going to open it about, 3/4, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. But I'm working in very short, super short strokes, because if if you're not careful, before you know it, you're gonna end up too high. This is a finishing, refining technique.
So it's all about control here. You don't
Yeah.
want to redo what you've done.
Exactly. If you really look closely, you start to see now a shadow. So that's just enough for you to be able to now blend and start to make that line disappear.
Yeah.
It looked really harsh earlier because you went from skin to hair.
And
So
now it's really kind of disappearing.
huge contrast, yeah. As you start to shrink those links together, or like, meet up, it's more forgiving. So now, the next thing up, I can't go any further. I'm going to put a guard on it, which is a very thin guard. And then that is a little bit more length. So as I work up, now it's going to start to get even longer. So that taper or that graduation, I'm now taking it even to the extreme, to the point where it's from nothing, you're going to get into this length.
Right.
I probably sound like such a dork. And sometimes you don't really see a huge change. So just keep brushing and maybe in a way just listen for the hair to get cut.
That's a good one, listening for the hair, because you can hear it.
For sure. And then the clippers do create some sort of vibration as well.
So you can see from this view exactly what he's doing. He's really just tapering it in even further.
So in a way, you can almost start to see that this line itself,
moving.
it's started to reduce. So now the contrasting line is even higher, which is totally cool. Some of you may not realize what I'm doing or where I'm going with this, but at the end, hopefully you'll understand, and you'll be reminded of, like, maybe you've seen it before but weren't really sure what to call it or how to go about doing it.
What is it called?
It's a tapered, skin
Yeah.
tapered, yeah. So this is the next guard up, which is a 1. And I'm just working up higher. And now I'm a lot more free because this length isn't so much different to what he had already. So you can start to see that those dark areas are starting to blend in. Yeah.
Them now. Like here in this corner area. Cool beans. So again, Manny's going to be doing all this kind of stuff at Long Beach. He's going to be doing basically Knowledge Destroys Fear, but with men's hair cutting. So teaching you all the essential what ifs and whats and whys and hows and whens and all that stuff. Very thorough. Just like me, kind of like a walking encyclopedia of hair cutting knowledge.
Honestly, like, I'm definitely looking forward to it. But most importantly, hopefully the audience will feel more empowered, get their money's worth. And that's the ultimate goal. It's not about me. It's not about, what I'm doing. It's about how is this going to improve your business and how it's going to help you be more confident with your clients.
We're not here to just show off how good we are. What it is all about you guys. It's about giving you those necessary ingredients and skills to become a chef at what we do instead of just a simple cook. It's to know all the ingredients and what they do.
So if you look, you have to remember, for those of you haircutters, you have to think like an A-line haircut. In a way, it needs to drop, so there has to be still some darkness. Because if I end up doing the same thing all the way around,
You're gonna cut all
I'm going to
the
end
way
up cutting and I have to do the entire haircut
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
So in a way, you have to drop it, and this maintains the framework. So when I go in there and outline it, it all sort of comes together at the end. And you can be as picky as you'd like. I could probably spend another 20 minutes just doing this, but I won't. Saturday night, I got things to do. I'm flying out tomorrow. But I definitely wanted to show you.
Where are you going tomorrow? What are you doing?
I work for Wella, Nioxin,
Cool.
and tomorrow is I'm flying tomorrow, but next week is our training
Where are you going?
to New York,
Oh, nice
to
and
the
cold.
Wella World Studio in Soho.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So you're gonna go see Fabio?
No, Fabio probably won't be there.
Oh.
Yeah. But I definitely will see him at some point.
Cool.
So now, this is a lot of weight still. My things.
got plenty of tools.
Just refinement.
So we're here at the factory late night.
Yeah.
Just cutting some hair. So now you're just really visually working it, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
The visual relationship to the haircut.
Yeah, all the technical stuff I've already done.
I like to say it's like you're decorating the house now. You've already built it.
For sure. So I'm just trying to get this silly little dark spot right in there. I may have to just freehand it. Screw it, man.
See, that's what I like when you start pulling out the freehand techniques. Manny usually cuts my hair, and before he went to barbering school, he would do it all freehand. So no guards, no comb.
In the past, I would probably just leave this alone. But now I think when you actually create an outline, it's almost like you have a beautiful photograph or a picture, and you put a frame on it.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it look even cooler. Frame it, like Mr. Maker.
So you are framing the sides of it.
I am, but I'm going to leave this alone.
Right, that looks great.
Yeah, and
What clippers is he using? Okay, here you go. These were the Wall.
the Wella edition, yeah.
Cordless, the magic clip. And then you're using the Wall trimmers.
Detailers. So you can start to see now the haircut's coming together.
Yeah, that made a big difference.
Now it's looking a little bit more polished.
Yeah.
And you can see too what the taper, the skin taper, that effect, in my opinion, it makes it look, expensive. It makes it look like it's worth more. Like you actually spent some time and like cared about the finishing of it as well. Joey would also desires a hard part, which I could totally do.
I think it looks great like that.
It does, it really does.
Fantastic. So again, we're going to be at Long Beach Hair Show, Ice Show in a few weeks. Manny's going to be there. He's going to be cutting hair with Anthony over here. And then Christina from the factory. Kind of an interesting lineup for the class. I like it because it covers all areas. We've got like Mr. Teacher, Educator, haircutter, barber guy. Then we've got full-blown Mr. Barber right here, barbershop owner. Real life barber. And then Christina, who works here at the factory, and she works on a lot of guys' hair and stuff. And I thought it'd be great to kind of just show you those three different kind of opinions on what they do. And then we're going to be doing Knowledge Destroys Fear myself. I'm going to do Knowledge Destroys Fear live. So taking you through about 5 different haircuts that you would probably do in the salon, just everyday classic haircuts. And then we're also doing a look and learn as well. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do that, but do that myself. That's great. Lee Julian Carver says, "Beautiful fade by Captain Kirk." You swear.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And just because I
Dude,
can't,
it looks great.
yeah, thank you. Just because I can't resist, I feel like I always will rely on my scissors. It's what you're trained to do. I'm just gonna give it one last pass.
See, that's what I love. The fact you can just go and just turn it manual right now instead of you know what I mean?
Unplug,
Yeah, I like that a lot. So just doing those final touches.
Exactly. Just finishing your haircut, making sure that the person is,
Groomed.
yeah. And sometimes, like I said, like if you look at it as design or like an outfit that's tailor made to you, it might take a couple fittings to get it just right. So
Exactly. I
it's
think that's a great way of putting it. It's tailor made. It's designed. It's not cookie cut.
and like a suit has its properties. Like a suit is always going to be a suit. You can try and tweak it here and there, but it's usually going to have very similar pattern to it.
Yeah, it's like
But it's-
saying you're doing a graduated bob. It's a graduated bob, isn't it? But
Right.
yeah.
And you can see here as well as I'm lifting the hair, it's falling. Everything's, falling into place. There's no like sudden jumps of weight. And,
As a teacher and you're teaching students this, like what are you looking for? How do you check scissor-over-comb instead of just looking at it fall? You know what I mean?
right.
Do you technically go in there and check it?
Well, I mean, you definitely have to look in the mirror,
Uh-huh.
which I haven't been doing a lot, but.
See, I sometimes what I will do is I'll check it, coming like this, looking at it underneath, as well as coming from the top as well, to always look at the shape of what you're creating in that.
And
So
there's
where
a
we
little
at?
bit of weight right there, so. Now, I don't claim to be the coolest haircutter in the world. I never will. I'm not the best barber in the world for sure. But I think my quality, or one of my qualities, is to explain what I'm doing in a way where it's easy to follow. It's not, trying to BS you all day long. I definitely approach it as I'm trying to encourage people to maybe step out of their comfort zone and make it easy, make it simple, simplify things. I think a lot of that has to do with, sorry, buddy. I think a lot of that has to do with DJ and how I've always been around him for so many years that I try to do what he does, but
I'm right here, dude. You can talk to me.
right, I try to do what you do, but related to men's hair, men's work, men's.
Yeah, I mean,
Cutting,
to,
for
to
sure.
me, it's all the same. We're cutting three-dimensional shapes and putting them on three-dimensional shapes.
Yeah,
It's cool.
how's it look?
Looks great. Yeah, I think you're dead, man.
Well, as long as he likes it. What do you think, Joey? And the fact that I don't have any product in this hair, we haven't really done any blow drying, and it
Right.
falls into place. To me, that's a sign of a good haircut, and I'm looking for that. So as I lift this, I'm just gonna check off that little.
I would call it a timeless look right there, man.
Oh, would you? Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. Of course, a nice little product, a nice little dry pomade maybe would enhance your work. Maybe polish it, give it a little bit more shine, but it's not going to make the haircut. So, all right,
Cool.
it's a wrap.
So, that's a wrap. So, any finishing words, Manny?
See you January 28th, 29th, maybe the 30th in Long Beach.
Yeah, we've got a busy weekend.
Yeah, it's going to kick off the show season of 2017.
Yeah.
It's going to be a busy year, so I'll see you guys around.
Thanks very much,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Here's just a little.
Thanks,
little
Joey.
bit. Thanks, Joey,
Thank you.
for loaning us your head. Cheers, guys.
All right.